joining us in studio. He's the former Maricopa County recorder, and he won an election over the weekend. He's here in studio, Secretary of State-elect Adrian Fontes. Congratulations.
Hey, thanks. But like the way your voice went down right there after that screaming guitar intro,
it's good.
It's a little bit of a downer.
You can't.
You got to keep it. You got to stay pumped up,
man.
bro.
Listen,
You got to. I'm going to come after your job, man.
Listen, you can. People have come after my job for 24 years at KTAR. No one's taken it yet. All right. Yeah. How did you win this election? What did you do to put yourself over the top and beat the Republican Mark Fincham? Can you point to one thing?
Yeah, we told the truth, and that's what the voters wanted. They just wanted to hear the truth, right? Because it's not just provable and proven, but folks are just kind of sick and tired of the clown show. They're sick and tired of the baseless conspiracies. They're sick and tired of the lies, and they want to move away from 2020. And, my opponent decided that his entire campaign was going to be run on one issue and one issue only, and that was Donald Trump's grievance. And you can't win an election when you're talking about somebody else's complaint, right? Folks want professionals in these offices who know how to do the job, who have the experience, who have the know-how, and who have their best interest at mind, or who will at least listen to them, right? And when you've got somebody who's, again, just harping on what happened years ago, all the disproven lies and all that sort of stuff, it's just not something that they want to do.
Still got 1 million votes, though.
Yeah, that's the big thing. He got 1.1 million votes, and it didn't start out well. Let's be real here in Maricopa County. Things came sideways in the morning that fed the fuel of the conspiracy insanity. You know, there's still a lot of people out there that feel uncomfortable, and you know this. We can't have a republic and a democracy the way that we have it if people don't believe their votes are counting.
Well, I can agree that there were some issues in the morning here in Maricopa County. I agree that during the primary there were issues in Pinal County. But when you look at what those actually are, right, all you're saying is it's okay for the conspiracy theorists to bend this towards a conspiracy of disproven lies. And that's not fair. It's not fair to the election administrators. It's not fair to our neighbors who are out there running these elections in the first place. These are doubts that were foisted on us by Donald Trump and his sycophants, like Mark Fincham, without any justification, without any reality behind them, and to continue to say, oh, well, this helps the lie, this helps the lie. That is in and of itself helping the lie. So as much as I love you guys, we got to be honest here. There wasn't anything wrong with our elections. We had some technical issues, and that's all they were. And people cannot be lulled into this kind of nonsense and continue to say, oh, this feeds it, and because it excuses the lie. And we cannot do that. We have to be firm. We have to be hard against it because it hurts, and we got to stop it.
Adrian Fontes is the Secretary of State-elect. He's joining us in studio. One thing you change about the election process, a lot of people say, it takes too long. It takes too long to count the votes. What people maybe don't realize is they're following the law. What the law states is that whatever vote comes in first, they're going to count. And then if, I guess, on Election Day, if there are a whole ton of votes that were just dropped off, that's going to take a long time to count. Is there something that you would say, you know what, this is the one thing we need to change, and I'd like to see it changed, so maybe the process could be improved?
Well, first and foremost, you're conflating two different things. The time it takes to tabulate the ballots is not any different than it has ever been. It took that long under Helen Purcell in Maricopa County. It took that long under my administration. It's taking that long under Stephen Richards' administration.
But the difference is what? At the end,
the difference is that everybody's saying, oh, it's taking too long. That's the difference. Look, back then.
But on a Tuesday, everybody drops their ballot off. Doesn't that make it harder?
It forces
and
it to take longer. Yeah, it forces it to take longer. Right. So when you've got folks like Kelly Ward and Carrie Lake and Mark Fincham saying, wait till Election Day, don't trust the process, drop it all off, of course it's going to take longer.
Right.
Early ballots were designed to get turned in, early. Turn them in early, and it's going to be a smoother process. In fact, the legislature a couple of years ago gave us many more days ahead of Election Day to start tabulating so we could get faster results. The law is the law, and the process is the process, and there's nothing wrong with it. To conflate that impatience with problems with the elections is wrong. And we never really had issues with it when the margins were so much wider.
Is that what a lot of this is?
That's exactly what this is.
Because here's the thing. They could call it tonight, but there's still outstanding ballots that have to be counted. But nobody cares about those once somebody's called it.
And years ago, nobody used to care. When John McCain was winning the state by 24 points, you'd call it on election night, and that's it. But guess what? It didn't take any less time to count the ballots.
Because you were
just
still
the call
counting them
was made
for
earlier.
several days.
Right, many days afterwards. So we're not in a different place except for the fact that our margins are a lot tighter. Now, as far as your original question, what would I change? I think we'd welcome more people into understanding what the process is. Right? Because if you don't understand a thing, it's easier to twist it around. It's easier to misrepresent it. But when you've got folks who are really communicating clearly with the voters and letting them know this is okay and here's why, actually communicating clearly with the people who this process serves, that's what we need to do better. Right? The process itself is fine. There will always be little hiccups. There will always be little problems, granted. But we need to be better at communicating with folks how this thing works so that they'll understand that Arizona has one of the best election systems in the United States of America. We genuinely do, and I'm very proud of that.
We got Adrian Fontes, Maricopa County recorder, former Maricopa County recorder, excuse me. He's the Secretary of State, elect one. The AP called it over the weekend, beating Mark Fincham, the Republican. All right, so did Fincham call you and congratulate you?
Who?
Mark Fincham. He has a cowboy
that
hat.
guy. No, I don't expect him to. I don't need him to. The voters spoke. He doesn't have to. And honestly, I don't expect him to. That would be inconsistent with his character for him to be decent and act like a statesman. For him to call me and concede would be outside of the ordinary. But, he knows how to get a hold of my number if he doesn't already have it. And I would welcome it if it happened, but that's not going to, I don't think that's real.
If you lost, would you have called him?
100% I would have.
100%.
100%.
That would have been a tough call for you.
Well, no tougher than when I called Stephen Richer a couple of years ago. And I invited him to come down to the warehouse and take a tour, and he did it. And we get along famously now.
Right.
As a matter of fact, he might get a little grumpy that I say this out in public, but when my daughter turned 18, I asked him if he would be willing to be there when she registered to vote, and he said yes. He's a very gracious guy.
How
He's
dare
earnest.
people from different parties get along? That is so un-American, except for the part where it's very American.
It is.
That's how we're supposed to do it. So, because that's the American thing to do, the proper and righteous thing to do.
We got away from it. We can't do that. We've got to get back to that, where, if you do lose, you be a gracious
And
loser,
you know what?
and you wish someone...
And the voters have told these guys, these deniers across the country, that that's what they need to do, that they need to start acting like Americans. They need to be good, gracious winners and good, gracious losers, rejecting that Trumpist nonsense about whining your way into a grift just because you can personally profit from it.
I was telling him Mastriano lost, who was maybe the biggest of all the Trump deniers, even bigger than Kerry Lake.
Yeah, in Pennsylvania.
He got blown out. This thing he tweeted out today? Let's get behind Josh Shapiro. He's our new governor. Let's say prayers for him. He won. And everybody's like, I can't believe he did it. Well, the voters spoke, and he believed what the voters had to say, and that's the way you should be.
Because that's a guy who gets it. That's a guy who understands that politicians derive their power from people, right? It is the consent of the governed. That's a concept that I think a lot of these deniers forget. It's a thing that we've moved away in our society from the divine right of kings, right? Where you either take over because of heredity or military power, right? And we've moved into the rule of law. And the rule of law requires that you are intelligent, you're gentlemanly about it, and that you act with dignity, because it's not about you. It's about the people. It's about the power of the people. That's what's important. And that's why I don't expect a concession call from him.
Adrian Fontes is joining us in studio, the Secretary of State-elect. When you were the Maricopa County recorder, in charge of the votes, the everything, I think your opinion on this is pretty interesting. I think you can give us, an inside look. Are they going to call the race for Katie Hobbs? You're a guy who's counted votes. You're a guy that's been in the election process. She is winning right now. It is not an insurmountable lead. Kerry Lake could come back if she gets 60%. In your opinion, what happens tonight? Maricopa County, 94,000 votes. They're all going to be counted.
Oh, what happens tonight is I'm probably going to have a medium rare ribeye.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm not asking you what you're
what
having for dinner. I'm saying what's going to happen tonight.
Well, the voters are going to make up their minds, and someone's
Well, what
going
do
to
you
tell us
think's gonna-
what
you
do
think-
I think's going to
Yeah, what
happen.
do you think's
I
gonna
think I'm
happen?
going to have. I think I'm going to have a governor that I hope I can work with open heart and open minds, and I hope we can work together to benefit the citizens of the state of Arizona. Look, I'm not in the business of calling races and speculating. You can leave that to the talking heads and the pundits. I have too much respect for the process and the voters to get into that kind of speculation right now. Respectfully, and I like you guys, but I'm not going to get pulled into that discussion.
I tried to pull you in.
Yeah,
I know.
you did.
I'll
You did
probably
everything
ask-
you could.
I'll ask again in a minute, but go ahead, Chad.
So, for you, right? This is a change for your family. Even though the chaos has been there before, this is a different time,
Yeah.
different lunacy that is going on. What have you told them, and what do you expect in the coming? Do you expect over the next, several cycles, this thing's really going to calm itself down? Or we're going to get back to a normalish way of life, or do you expect 24/7 protection?
I expect that anything that we do vis-a-vis the security of my family is going to stay as confidential as possible. And I expect that anytime anybody asks me something like that, I will avoid it just as much as I avoided his question about the outcome in the governor's race.
Not done yet. I still got a minute.
Well, you still got a minute.
But
Yeah.
you have security now, obviously. We've seen what Katie Hobbs has gone through as Secretary of State. She's had security at her house. She's had death threats. I'm not going to speculate, but I will. I guess you're probably getting some of the same things, and you want to keep your family safe. I'm sure you have security now, and your life is going to change a lot, don't you think?
Well, whether or not my life has changed is, again, part of that whole circumstance that I prefer not to discuss, right? This is something that has to do with me and my family. And I think what folks out there need to know is that I'm going to do my level best to do this job well, and I'm going to work with whoever the voters decide that I need to work with to make things happen for the voters. And the reason that I'm avoiding this issue like the plague is because I refuse to empower those who would do violence, either by threat or actual violence. I refuse to discuss these issues outside of the idea that we need to provide stricter laws at the federal and state level to protect election administrators and their families, and much harsher penalties for people who would bring violence into a perfectly civil and civilian activity, and that is election administration.
All right, last one. We can have lawsuits. We're going to see a bunch of lawsuits here, no matter who wins, loses.
I'll tell you what, it wouldn't surprise me, but look, we're still prepared for anything right now. I'm just as guilty as every other politician fundraising.
You got a bunch of lawyers ready?
We not only have lawyers ready, we've got folks ready to serve the appropriate parties because we know which are the right parties to serve, if you get my meaning.
I get your meaning. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, right.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, the bottom line
meals.
is it would be irresponsible of me to come into this blind and unprepared. And if there's anything that folks should know about me, and they do, is that I'm pretty well prepared for most of this stuff.
All right, Secretary of State-elect Adrian Fontes, thanks for coming in studio. Congrats on your win.
Thanks so much. I can't wait to take your job.
I know. It's going to be good.
And then you get his job.
Chad and Fontes.
Then you're going to get his job.
Well, I don't want his job.
That's too late now. You just said you guys are swapping.
No,
This is
Thanks
awesome.
for having me, guys.
He works
I really
almost
appreciate
5 hours a day.
Oh, please.
Have
Oh,
a great
gosh.
afternoon.
Hey, thanks a lot.
All right, guys.